If I told you that I packed all of these books in my suitcase for a 6-week trip, would you think I was absolutely insane? Because I just realized that it's not all of them, there's also 2 more here. But basically, these are all of the books that, oh my gosh, they're falling. These are all the books that I brought with me for my backpacking trip to Asia. When I say backpacking, I had a suitcase. There was no backpack. But I was like traveling around Asia and then Hawaii, and I basically wanted to read books from the places that I was visiting. And so that is kind of what I brought with me on this trip. And I thought today I would just run you through all of the books that I brought with me. Some of them I actually bought on the trip, and I read all of them. All but one, I think. So let's go through them. Firstly, I went to Taipei and I bought this book in a bookstore. Like, obviously, I bought it in a bookstore, but this is by Miyako Kawakami, and I then read it on a bullet train in Tokyo, and it was so phenomenal and so great. Even like the opening page is one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. So I highly recommend this book. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm going to be covering all of these in proper reviews, but I wanted to just show you like the books, the physical books that I brought with me. And then while I was in Taipei, I read this book, which is called Ghost Town, which is set partially in Taipei, partly in Germany, but mostly in Taipei, in Taiwan. It's by Keith Chen, and it's all about kind of superstitions surrounding ghosts and the fluidity of life and death. And it was cool, it was interesting. This one actually took me a little while to get through because it's quite dense and has lots of different POVs. I found it kind of hard to get into. Okay, so that was Taipei. I bought another book in Taipei, this one. I also bought Diary of a Void. This is by Emi Yagi. It's about a woman who fakes her own pregnancy. I read this pretty much in one sitting. And actually, I was telling my friend about this book, like how wild it was. And then she just sat with me and we read the final like 30 pages together. Like she was just reading it over my shoulder while I was reading it. Because she was like, now I need to know how this book ends because you've got me intrigued. So that was the kind of weird psychological thing with a bit of an ambiguous ending, which I thought was really cool. So then after Taipei, I headed to Korea. And so first book I read in Korea was Human Acts by Han Kang. This I bought while I was in Korea, and it actually turned out to be very, very relevant because the historical event this is talking about, actually the president of Korea's grandson was going around apologizing to victims of this event at the time when I was actually in Korea. So that was really interesting, very pertinent and relevant. I also bought this little book called House of Idols by Choi In-hoon. Now this was part of the, where does it say? The Portable Library of Korean Literature. This is number 16, I think actually out of 16, and it's just a collection of short fiction. And I basically looked through all of them and I was like, I'm gonna buy one of these because it was like £3. So I read all the blurbs and then I decided this one sounded the best, and honestly the writing in here was so stunning, particularly the last story. I'm a sucker for quotes about love and death and life. Here's one right now to give you a little taster. Death doesn't scare me, but the thought that I will never again look upon flowers disturbs me. I love like little snippets like that. That's like, I underline the hell out of books like that. So I really like that. That was a kind of surprise find. In Korea, I also read Almond. I'm actually thinking I'm going to do a video on all of the books that Suga from BTS has recommended because he really highly recommended this book and I loved it so much. And if his other recommendations are as good as this, holy moly. This is about a boy who doesn't feel certain emotions like fear and pain because of a deformity in his brain where the part of the brain that senses those emotions is the size of an almond. And his is like underdeveloped, and as a kid he would like eat almonds to try and make it grow bigger. But it is a heartbreaking book. It made me cry on a plane. Oh, I read this on the way to Korea actually, so I guess this was the first book I read in Korea. Oh god, my camera battery is already flashing. That's not a good sign. I went to dinner with my friend Anton, and then the next day I found this book that he translated in the bookstore with this cover that I love, and then I bought it and I sat under the cherry blossom and I read Love in the Big City, and it became one of my favourite books of all time. So I'm going to be talking about this book a lot. That's all I'll say for now because otherwise this video will be 25 years long while I just talk about how great that book is. Then in Korea I read Concerning My Daughter, which I'm not gonna lie, kind of gave me like Everything Everywhere All at Once vibes in terms of like the mother-daughter relationship and the mother not approving of the daughter's decisions. And having this kind of emotional journey where she tries to understand her daughter. I thought that was really interesting. It doesn't have that like multiverse element of everything everywhere all at once, but if you're looking for that side, the like emotional side of that movie in a book, it's this one. And I actually watched Everything Everywhere All at Once on the plane home as well because I love that movie so much. Oh, I missed this one. When I was in Taipei, I also read this book. This is There There by Tommy Orange, which is actually, it's all Native American voices, so actually not Asian literature, but I did bring a few books that weren't, that I just wanted to read. Oh look, I have this photo booth picture with my friends inside. This book was so brilliant. It has a range of different storylines that all eventually kind of converge, and it's so brilliantly done. So powerful, so moving, huge crescendo at the end. Wow. I also read this book of Korean poetry. It's called Unexpected Vanilla by Lee Hyemi. I realized that I'd never read any Korean poetry, so now I have. What else? Okay, I think that's all the Korean books. Okay, one book that I did not get around to reading was this one. This is The Age of Doubt. This is by Park Kyung-ni, and I think that they are a very established and venerated Korean author, like kind of more of a like classic Korean author. I kind of read all my contemporary stuff. I didn't actually get around to this book, so I will. But I only had a week in Korea, so I was like trying to pack in all of these books. I didn't get around to this one. So this is still on my TBR. And I did carry it around Asia for no reason, for 6 weeks in my suitcase. It seems. Okay, well, anyway, there you go. Oh yeah, and then the final book that I read in Korea was this one, Untold Night and Day. This was very weird, very odd. Okay, then on my travels in Japan, I read this on a bullet train. It is Sula by Toni Morrison. Not a Japanese book, but oh my god, I don't know if I've ever underlined so many pages in one book. This is absolutely phenomenal. Like one of the best books of all time, I think. Yeah, honestly, this trip had so many good reads. I was in heaven. And Sula is just phenomenal. Honestly, it speaks for itself. It is about these two best friends, one of whom betrays the other, and then it's about kind of their lives and the craziness that happens in them. Multiple characters set on fire in that book. Wild. I also read this book. This is Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. I bought this before leaving, but I was really intrigued by it and really wanted to read it. And it was pure filth. Like whenever I was speaking to my friends about this book, I'd be like, oh, just gonna return to my porn now. Because it is honestly, every single page is outrageous. So much crazy stuff happens. It's wild. And then another non-Japanese book before I get onto the Japanese books was this one. This is Nevada by Imogen Binney. This is like a road trip novel, but trans. And it was super cool. It was such an interesting insight into trans literature, trans lives. I loved this book. You kind of get two perspectives. One person who is definitely trans and then one person who is maybe trans. Kind of thinking about it. And they collide, and it's fascinating. How High We Go in the Dark is written by a Japanese-American author, but a lot of it is set in Japan, although it's actually set in the future. It's kind of about like a future pandemic. I just had this horrible thought that my camera wasn't recording, but it is. Okay. Phew. Okay, no worries. It is this mosaic of different perspectives, which are all sort of interlinked in some way. It is hugely imaginative. I think maybe it was a little bit too ambitious. Oh no, my camera battery just died. So we're just gonna move on to my phone and we're all just gonna pretend it's the same. Okay, where was I? How High We Go in the Dark. I love this title. I think this cover is beautiful. Some of the writing was a fascinating insight into the human psyche, and it's all mostly done through conversations. Most of these stories are someone talking to someone else, two people talking to each other. And I think I kind of like a bit more interiority and a little bit more descriptive writing. So I think that's why this wasn't like a new favorite, but I did respect it and think it was very cool. Things remembered and things forgotten. You know, I was kind of talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once before, and this kind of gave me similar vibes too. I mean, it's hard for a book to be like completely like Everything Everywhere All at Once, but this book kind of did give me similar vibes. Like we have one story called When My Wife Was a Shiitake, things like that. This was really enthralling, really captivating. I really enjoyed this short story collection. Oh wow, the first book by a Japanese writer that I read in Japan was this one, No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. This was freaking wild. It's about this guy who believes himself to not be fully connected to the human race. Like, he doesn't feel he has the same emotions as people, and he tries to kill himself. And once you know that the author of the book had a very similar life or like worldview, it becomes even more kind of poignant and intense and dejected. The writing in here is really, really, really stunning. I highly recommend this book, but it is unhinged. Another short story collection. This is Night Train to the Stars by Kenji Miyazawa, who is a very revered and beloved Japanese author. Again, I do mostly read like contemporary stuff, but this was my classic piece of Japanese fiction that I wanted to read. And I thought it was okay. I thought it was all right. Oh, I guess I finished 100 Years of Solitude on the plane over to from New York. So that's also in the pile because I kind of finished it on my way to this trip. So that's in the suitcase, but I don't really count it. Of course, then I read All the Lovers in the Night and Diary of a Void, which are both Japanese pieces of fiction. I bought them in Taipei, but read them in Japan. And then, finally, I flew to Hawaii, and I didn't have a Hawaiian book. And I'd sort of finished all of the books that I brought with me, aside from Age of Doubt. And instead of reading that, I went to Barnes & Noble and I bought this book, which is Sharks in the Time of Saviors. This is by Kawai Strong Washburn, and it made my trip to Hawaii so much more immersive because it talks a lot about traditions in Hawaii, about family dynamics, feelings towards tourism, the geography of Hawaii. This was really, really great. I really loved this book, and the writing is stunning. I'm still actually just kind of finishing it. I've got like 20 pages left to go. So it's kind of full of drama, so I'm feeling like it could all kick off in the last 20 pages. So sorry that we had to kind of change format halfway through. We're now on the phone, but thank you for watching this video. These are all of the books that I brought with me. Okay, people did say this must be like a PR stunt for some sort of collaboration with Kindle, where you're trying to like show, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous to bring this many books on a trip, but it is my job. This is what I do. And having physical books to be able to show in like TikToks and YouTube videos is so much more engaging than like holding up a Kindle or putting a graphic on the screen. So that is why I do carry these books around with me. Would I do this again and carry this many books? Probably not. But for me, you can't beat the feeling of like sitting on the train and underlining passages and like folding down the pages. I just love it. And so that's why I went with physical books, though I would not recommend it to literally anyone else. It's just because I make book content, and so kind of made sense to bring these books with me. So that's my kind of like explainer, I guess, for why I brought so many books, physical books on a trip like this. Honestly, my suitcase wasn't even that heavy. I had 23 kilograms of baggage allowance for all of my flights. And when I flew there, my bag was 15 kilograms. And when I flew back, it was 19 kilograms. So it was okay. It was all right. So thank you so much for watching this video. All the best. Stay in touch. Have a wonderful day. You can subscribe if you're new. And I've got lots more content coming very, very soon. Okay. Bye-bye. Oh, it's different doing on my phone.